This is a life-threatening situation for parts of the area because we're not used to this.
This is how cold it is now when you have not had power for 48 hours.
Roy, I promise you this. We're going to work like crazy to get you the answers that you need and the answers that you deserve.
Why are people getting emails saying the power is back on when they can look around and tell that it's not?
Would you say that your emergency plan was inadequate?
We don't really know what is going on.
And you're a member of city council. If you don't know what's going on, how does anybody?
It's literally a cry for basic human decency. You gotta fix this, San Antonio.
I know for a fact from the line crews that told me that they were out there Wednesday night turning on the lights back on because of you, because of what you said. You saved our lives, you saved everybody in this, you saved the city. David. No, you did. I don't care what you say, David.
The effects of last week will be felt for weeks to come.
That's why we have complete team coverage of the aftermath of last week's snowstorm.
We are asking your questions to SAWS and CPS Energy officials to get you answers about why so many were without power and water for so long last week, and some still are.
I've been reading your text messages.
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, text messages we obtained between the mayor and CPS Energy leaders helped us uncover a major bombshell. News 4 San Antonio troubleshooter Emily Bockham reports during the winter storm, CPS Energy accidentally cut power to a local hospital.
The morning of Tuesday, February 16th, the CEO of Methodist Healthcare texts the mayor. We've lost power at our Texan hospital and are running on backup generators now. I can't stress how dangerous this is. While we all have generators, which we test monthly, there is a lot that can go wrong. The mayor forwarded the text to Rudy Garza at CPS Energy.
So we're out 4.5 hours.
And that's not all Methodist CEO had to say.
He wrote, I've literally never in my career heard of a power company intentionally shutting off power to a hospital. What's your reaction to that?
Well, it's not our intention to shut off power to a hospital, so my reaction is he's not wrong in that regard.
Garza admits to the troubleshooters Texan Hospital lost power during the bitter cold because CPS Energy made a mistake.
We have operators literally sitting there trying to rotate through outages. They just hit that circuit by accident. It was not, intentional, but once you hit it, you've got to let it go through the rotation process to come back to it so that you can pull it out.
Texan was not the only hospital impacted during the snowstorm. The mayor's text that week with senior leaders from CPS Energy and San Antonio Water Systems show water was out at Stone Oak Methodist, and the CEO of Baptist Health System asked for help limiting power outages to hospitals and increasing water pressure at downtown Baptist.
The troubleshooters asked both Baptist and Methodist, did hospitals get the proper assurance they would never be impacted like this again? Baptist didn't really answer that question, just said that the problems were resolved quickly. Methodist told us, you'll have to ask the utility companies. So we did. Have you met with the hospitals since then?
Yes, we're in the process right now of getting ready for the summer. So, we've scrubbed all those critical care lists again to ensure that the hospitals that need to be on designated as critical are designated as such.
As for the water problems, SAWS blames the domino effect of power outages, telling us, based on the lessons from the February event, SAWS and CPS Energy are currently exploring ways to minimize customer impacts should ERCOT demand future power reductions.
And we've got to do better going forward.
Texas top elected officials pulled in close to 20% of their campaign contributions from one industry over the last 4 years.
The News 4 troubleshooter April Molina reveals the top oil and gas industry donors and why something this type of influence led to much of the fallout from the February freeze.
Just a few days into Texas freezing over in mid-February, Governor Greg Abbott was pointing the finger at renewable energy as the Texas energy grid's greatest weakness.
How did that serve the interests of his donors? It said they weren't responsible for the problem. It was these windmills.
Texans for Public Justice Research Director Andrew Wheat says Abbott was misdirecting the blame to serve the interest of his major donors. Between 2017 and 2020, the governor pulled in $78 million in campaign contributions. TPJ research reveals more than $16 million came from donors in the oil and gas industry. The top three, $2.6 million from Midland Energy President and CEO Saeed Anwar, $1 million from Energy Transfer Partners Chair and CEO Kelsey Warren, and another $1 million from Hunt Consolidated Chair and CEO Raymond Hunt. Anwar also donated $500,000 to Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick's campaign and $220,000 to Attorney General Ken Paxton's campaign, while Warren contributed $400,000 to Patrick and $100,000 to Paxton. Wheat thinks the sizable donations from the head of Energy Transfer Partners are significant.
They are one of the companies that it was recently reported made more than $1 billion in windfall profits over the big freeze.
Couldn't they argue that's just because they were prepared and they had the supply when we needed it?
I think they could argue that. I think you could also question whether sort of how much profiteering in a situation like that is reasonable.
We must keep moving. We must keep going. If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl, but by all means, keep moving.
We've gathered here today to celebrate the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Not only to celebrate his birthday, but to remember what he said. Far more important than that, to engage in the things that he did. And one of the things that Dr. King said is that our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter.
Well, here at News 4, we have been getting a number of complaints from some of you who have disabilities, and they're saying it is just too difficult to make it to one of those mass vaccination sites here in San Antonio, and it would be much easier just to go to the regular pharmacy. Well, you see the governor there, and Joe Galley went straight to him to find out when your local pharmacy will be able to get you the COVID vaccine.
These mega sites where we have people getting vaccinated here in San Antonio, there are a lot of disabled people that have a great difficulty getting there. Is there any thought to getting more vaccine to some of the smaller pharmacies, that mom and pop shops that people can get to?
There are a couple of things about that with regard to the current vaccines that are available.
The governor went on to say that the state is in the process of getting mobile units that would go into disadvantaged neighborhoods to get people the COVID-19 vaccine, but he did not have any details on when we could actually see that happening here in the San Antonio area. People have been really frustrated with the phone calls and the websites. Why is it taking so long to get a registration thing like this going?
Thank you, San Antonio. We're here for you, and you were here for local families, helping the San Antonio Food Bank collect more than 2 million pounds of food this November. Food for San Antonio. You helped so many families in need this holiday season. Thank you.
Leaders here have been asking you to report face mask violations, but are they following the rules in their own buildings? Well, News 4 troubleshooter Jay Avila uncovered some mask mistakes at government facilities here that just might result in big fines if they happen at your business.
Bexar County businesses can get fined $1,000 if they don't prevent people from entering without a mask. But what if people take their mask off once they're inside? That's what we saw happening at busy local government buildings. The owner of Party City says he's enforcing the mask order as best he can, but doesn't like the fact businesses can get fined for the actions of others.
The ordinance puts us in a very precarious situation because now we are having to police customers that we're trying to satisfy.
We visited city and county facilities over a 3-week period and found most were diligently checking temperatures at the entrance, requiring masks and social distancing. But it wasn't hard to spot instances like this: security staff lowering or taking off their masks at the entrance to Bexar County's headquarters building, Elizondo Tower. In the same building, an employee walking around without any mask at all, even when we stop her to ask for directions. At the county jail magistrate office, workers sit next to each other, not wearing their masks. And this at the Bexar County Clerk's customer service window, a relatively confined area for workers where we saw several not using face coverings. Over at the city's magistrate counter, we saw this employee who appears to deal with members of the public. The city says he'll be coached about keeping the mask on. This is the city office's reception area. The city told us because they're distanced from each other and they have plexiglass shields, personnel here only need to put on masks when visitors check in. And at the county probation office, an employee sits across from us, not wearing a mask properly.
That's Elizondo Tower, your building.
We showed our video to Bexar County Judge Nelson Wolf and asked if it's fair to fine businesses when his own facilities aren't always in compliance.
Under your rules, you could have been fined for some of that, right?
Well, I guess you're right, but some of them did appear to me to be within 6 feet of each other, and they should have had it on. But as you can tell from all those pictures you've taken, it's very difficult.
How do you keep a child engaged who's learning at home and in some cases probably home alone?
We will let you know what comes out of the meeting that just started moments ago.
Continuing our back to school coverage tonight.
District staff are urging parents to go online and complete this registration survey.
Distance learning has certainly exposed that's a big problem in San Antonio.
News 4 San Antonio, we're your education station. This morning, we continue our Ask the Superintendent segments here on News 4 in the mornings. This morning, we are pleased to welcome Judson ISD Superintendent Dr. Jeanette Ball. Doctor, thank you for being on with us this morning. I'll get right to it. We are less than 2 weeks from the first day of school. You guys are going to start remote learning. Is the plan to have kids back 3 weeks after that? And whenever you do bring kids back to campus, in your opinion, what's the biggest safety challenge? Let's get right to it. We have 4 guests that are joining us today. We have Dr. Sean Micah from Northeast ISD. From Judson, we have Dr. Jeanette Ball, Dr. Lloyd Versta from Southwest ISD, and Mr. Rolando Toscano from East Central ISD. To all of you, first off, thank you so much for being here. Also, I think before we begin, I just kind of wanted to tell you guys and kind of let our audience know as well that Ernie and I have talked about this the last several days. We would honored that we're doing this, but also we just want this to be a discussion. Right. This isn't a gotcha segment. This isn't about pointing fingers. This is literally about trying to get as much information out there.
But I think we would all agree last week was not the kind of start that you, Dr. Woods, wanted. I know you've apologized for the issues that happened with the technology and everything. So now that we are into week 2 now, I wonder what your takeaway was from that experience and how are things, generally speaking, 100,000 plus students, how are things going in Northside today?
Yeah, so quite a bit better than last Monday, as you might expect.
And our top story tonight, the Texas Education Agency releasing those guidelines for getting students across the state back to school this fall. It is a 9-page guide. It lists both recommendations and requirements for a number of scenarios that include online as well as in-person instruction and transportation.
It also requires teachers and staff to self-screen for COVID-19, and that includes temperature checks and monitoring themselves for symptoms. School systems may consider screening students for COVID-19 as well.
We continue now with more team coverage. We've looked at what they want schools to do about masks, about social distancing, cleaning, teaching methods, and now what about transportation? Well, the TEA has a number of suggestions on how to get your kids to school and back safely. And tonight, News 4 San Antonio's Darian Trotter talked with a parent who says these suggestions are not practical.
There's a lot of people over here that do not have cars. There's a lot of kids that have to ride the bus, and the bus is not safe for people to ride right now.
Melissa Harnish, not mincing words about the Texas Education Agency's plan to reopen schools. Detailed guidelines include safety recommendations for school buses to help prevent the spread of coronavirus.
There will be high school sports this fall, just a few weeks later than we're used to for some districts. At least that is the plan right now from the UIL. And News 4 San Antonio's Don Harris begins our team coverage on how the pandemic is now affecting schools with the details of this. Again, it's just a plan right now from the UIL. Don?
Well, Randy, as expected, the UIL has delayed the start of the high school football season for Class 5A and 6A around this entire state. But there were some surprises with their announcement today. For starters, the UIL is not making a uniform change. Football season will start on time in most rural areas across the state, and those seasons will begin as scheduled. But with all the delays for in-person schooling in the big cities hit hardest by COVID-19, it will be a minimum 5-week delay.
Taco Cabana Thursday Night Lights, presented by Thomas J. Henry, kicks off its 13th season in August.
Are you ready for some big-time Texas high school football live on Thursday Night Lights? What a catch! Kidding me! Make a play 1-4.
Triple coverage.
Oh,
Locke's got it. What a catch. Locke, touchdown, O'Connor. He will not be stopped.
You've had direct contact with this AFFF foam.
Oh, yes.
In your mouth?
Hands, eyes, mouth, nose, ears.
Why wasn't he just charged with trafficking guns to Mexico?
Why not pay solar customers the same price that you charge them for electricity?
A homeowner complained to SAWS for weeks, while News 4 troubleshooter Emily Bauckham sent just one email to SAWS headquarters, and she got it fixed in an hour.
The Blue Hills Wind Farm was planned for the Devils River area, about 200 miles northwest of San Antonio. Troubleshooter Jay Avila investigates claims it poses a threat to national security and our power grid.
This ranch belongs to Sun Guoxan, a former Chinese military official who's purchased 140,000 acres with plans to build wind and solar farms.
Property owners and conservationists were the first to raise alarm about the wind farm, saying construction might harm the pristine Devil's River. And allowing a foreign company to connect to the Texas power grid would make it vulnerable.
There are foreign actors, as we've seen recently with the gas pipeline hack, that have ill intent for our country and our critical infrastructure.
Those concerns were amplified by China watchers like Kyle Bass, who recently took this picture of an airstrip on Sun's ranch. Bass alleges Sun Guoxan is a former general with ties to the Communist Party, and his company should not be allowed access to the power grid.
When you're able to plug directly in, you're able to map it, you're also able to upload malware. You can do all kinds of horrible things to our grid.
Would your wind farm be a threat to the state of Texas?
No, it would not.
I interviewed Stephen Lindsay, a vice president with GH America, Sun's company that wants to build the wind farm. He says he doesn't know if his boss has ties to the Communist Party, but says he's not a former general.
None of that's true. The chairman of the board of the company held a mid-level rank as an Army officer in a motor pool company.
Lindsay says the wind farm passed security reviews with the federal government and the Department of Defense. Opponents say GH America wants to put up unusually tall 700-foot wind turbines in an area not particularly known for high winds and where pilots from Laughlin Air Force Base fly training missions. State Senator Donna Campbell likens it to a Trojan horse China could control to gain access to the power network.
And the Chinese Communist Party believes any China citizen, whatever property they have is also their property.
The legislature has now passed the Lone Star Infrastructure Protection Act. It won't allow companies controlled by China, Russia, Iran, or North Korea, or one of their citizens, to tie in to critical power, cybersecurity, communications, hazardous waste, or water treatment facilities.
The bill serves to protect our critical infrastructure from countries that are hostile to us.
If Sun is forced to give up and sell his property, ranchers and conservationists say their battle will continue against other projects encroaching on this unspoiled part of Texas.
Are you going to allow doctors to use this waiver as a loophole to charge more?
Why can't water just cost the same price for everybody?
The troubleshooters are now getting answers after catching an SAPD officer parked in a handicap spot.
I mean, it's unacceptable. I mean, we've got to obey all traffic laws. We're not above the law.
What made you call the troubleshooters?
Because no one was coming out here.
We are in the danger zone in so many ways.
Team coverage tonight with a crew at the coast tracking the storm, plus how the COVID crisis is throwing emergency plans here to the wind.
Just got a brand new advisory, Randy, from the Hurricane Center. Winds are now up to 65 miles an hour. So this is a strong tropical storm. The pressure dropped about 6 millibars since the last update.
Hurricane warning is in effect along with storm surge flood warnings. This is a big concern out here, even though Friday night, not a bad evening. Folks are out. It's a little bit breezy.
Meteorologist Brad Satter with our sister station, Fox 29, down in Corpus Christi in the thick of it. Brad?
Hey, Chris. Yeah, we're here at Bluffs Landing. Got to tell you, the winds are picking up. I mean, look at these trees here. We're probably seeing winds right now at 50 to 60 miles per hour with some gusts at times, maybe up to 70 miles per hour. I don't think we've had hurricane force winds, but we have been out with Hurricane Hannah, the first hurricane of the Atlantic season, and we've been covering this all day.
Hurricane Hannah has pounded parts of Texas. Some of the most serious damage that we have found from Hannah is right here in Gulf Beach, right next to Mustang Island. You know, it's really incredible out here tonight. This is some of the heaviest rain and some of the biggest winds that we've seen all day long. Winds easily at 60 to 70 miles per hour. Of course, the hurricane made landfall about 30 miles to the south of here, where conditions were even worse. This rain is creating all new problems, and no doubt from the damage you saw on the beach, it is going to be closed for quite some time.
Whenever we were together, it was just like we would get closer and closer and closer until there was nowhere to go.
San Antonio's voice tonight, that is Chris Perez, talking about how his relationship with the late Tejano star Selena developed when they were both in her family's band and falling in love. Now, their relationship is expected to be a big part of season 2 on the Netflix series on the life of the Tejano star who was murdered back in 1995. Well, I talked with Chris about all kinds of things last year, including how he got into music and then wound up in Selena's band. Also, how he felt about her as it developed. And then even now, nearly 26 years after her death, he tells me he can still feel her presence.
People are living on this money. How do you expect them to pay it back?
Less than 24 hours after our story aired, a News 4 viewer made the life-saving call. Joshua Kane is fit and healthy. He also has a giving heart, and that compelled him to donate his kidney to a San Antonio man he'd never met. News 4 troubleshooter April Molina isn't shining a light on wrongdoing tonight, but rather on doing the right thing and the profound impact it can have on others. You'll also get to see the moment kidney donor and kidney recipient met for the first time.
Diagnosed with kidney disease more than 2 years ago, Alex Meir spent the last couple years waiting on the kidney transplant list. But when News 4 aired his wife and daughter's plea for a live kidney donor back in February, his fate was fast-tracked. News 4 viewer Joshua Kane offered his kidney in February, and less than 3 months later, on May 6th, both he and Alex arrived at University Hospital, ready for transplant surgery.
I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling really strong. A little nervous, a little anxious, but excited to get this new kidney in me.
Despite the fact that the donor and recipient hadn't yet met, they had similar thoughts on the morning of the life-changing surgery. Both shared they were excited, a little nervous, and both were thinking how great it was that Meir's dialysis days were behind him.
I'm just fortunate enough to have my health, and so I'm glad that I'm able to share it.
Meir was rolled into surgery around 8:30 in the morning. 4 hours later, the surgery was over and by all accounts, a success.
It's pretty dramatic. The second, you release the vascular clamps and that kidney just pinks up right away.
University Hospital transplant surgeon Dr. Gregory Bahamian says the kidney began doing its job even before they could close the incision, explaining that kidneys from living donors almost always work better and last longer.
Kidneys from living donors, tend to start working immediately because they're only out of the body for a very brief period of time, 20 minutes at the most.
Thank you.
12 days after the surgery, both Meir and Kane came back to University Hospital for a checkup and a little celebration where they would finally meet.
We're both vaccinated, brother. Come here, man. Thank you so much, brother.
An endearing embrace that expressed more than words could say.
And I think Josh is an amazing person just for wanting to help another family that you don't know and make sure that she had her dad for a long time.
There were tears and there were hugs and this unforgettable moment.
This is for you. Thank you for bringing this to everyone's attention.
When Kane presented Sophia with a donor champion medal for all the work she did on behalf of her dad.
You're an amazing little girl.
During the last 2 years, Sophia and her mom spent hours painting car signs and yard signs, pleading for a kidney donor. And when she finally got to meet the man who stepped up to donate his kidney, she painted one more picture, an expression of her joy and gratitude.
I'm just happy. I'm so happy, Mr. Josh. I'm just so happy you saved my daddy's life.
You were here for this local family.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We got the kidney.
If it wasn't for you guys, you wouldn't have seen it.
We will get you back to Judge Judy momentarily, but we want to give you a brief update on the unfolding situation at the San Antonio International Airport.
The San Antonio Airport on lockdown after an officer-involved shooting.
This has been going on for about the past hour now. We are able to confirm that there is no active threat to the public, but we want to walk you through what we're hearing has taken place over the past hour.
Our latest take is that the gunman has been taken to an area hospital.
Police confirm a heavily armed man has been shot and killed after opening fire outside the lower level of Terminal B.
We're learning the gunman had a box of ammunition and was shooting indiscriminately at the airport.
Melissa Vega at the live desk, where we also want to show you some video of the alleged suspect, the shooter, being taken by ambulance. We do know that he is believed to be in his 40s.
What we had there was the start of an active shooter.
There's a lot to tell you about, so let's start our coverage with News 4 San Antonio's Amanda Henderson. She's live at the airport with what she's learning about this deadly officer-involved shooting. Amanda?
Jay, just incredible scenes. People were terrified when they heard there was an active shooter.
That's what we heard. Stories of people really stampeding through the terminal out of fear, even though the individual apparently did not get into the terminal. Everything happened on the roadway outside.
News 4 San Antonio troubleshooter Jay Avila has uncovered that some local doctors actually work for one of the biggest investment firms in the country.
Raising the question, are surprise medical bills the result of treating your health care as an investment?
I think is best demonstrated from a broadcast last week in San Antonio by WAI reporter Jay Avila.
Good evening, and I am joining you live out here from the Freeman Coliseum. And we did learn that the press conference just ended. It wrapped up just a few minutes ago. We have Alejandra Guzman on that. She'll bring us those details shortly. But, you know, we've been seeing migrant children being brought right here to San Antonio, to the Freeman Coliseum behind me. Local leaders have been calling this a humanitarian effort. Let's get to News 4's Joe Galley. He has been tracking this story, covering it tirelessly for us. And Joe, can you tell us what you've seen over the last day? What have you observed?
Last time Texas went for a Democrat for president was 1976 with Jimmy Carter.
Right.
But, you know, if you followed this like a month ago, people said, oh, it's definitely red. And then in the past week, you really saw people, and maybe this is just the Twitterverse. Twitterverse is its own world.
Absolutely. Just want to say thank you so much, San Antonio. You have helped us raise an impressive $194,000 to help send local high school seniors to college. Now, if you bought a ticket, make sure you tune in tomorrow on the evening break at 6:30. Tomorrow at 6:30, where we will be drawing one lucky winner at a chance to win one of 5 brand new cars. So thank you again, and good luck, everyone.
Tornado confirmed from 2 storm chasers here on this cell. And let me see if I can even go in just a little bit closer here for you and pan this down on the west side of a town right in here. Really strong circulation. And again, understand, too, we're sort of in this gray area between our 2 radar locations here. So the beams between the 2, trying to get my best possible view here of the circulation. But that's it. There's Hondo, and it's just off here to the west. And let me see if I can just go ahead and kind of give you some indicators here of the wind speeds, the outbound winds. There you can see. Now, that's not a particularly good estimate there. Let me see if I can reposition this here again, just to kind of give you an idea. There you see the strength of those winds. And in here, let's get on the east side here. And there you can see a wind estimate over 100 miles an hour. So we have some really strong rotation here within this particular part of the supercell storm west from Hondo here. We need to absolutely be in that safe room you've designated for every severe weather season. This is the time now for the next 20 minutes. Just got to huddle up, get into that little interior room here, and let this storm pass. Those are pictures. That's from Gavin. All right, so he's now driving east away from the storm, trying to make sure that he's not in harm's way there. So have him go just on the central east side there, if you will, and then maybe park it and bring that camera view back around there. That would be ideal there, just so we maybe get a little view. You see, we still have some daylight, so it's really a dark shot right now because of the menacing thunderstorm that's coming right over Hondo here. We're still a little ways away from our sunset, but again, looks like that's coming right into Hondo, right in here. I'm going to go ahead and put a stop on this. Near and just south of 90, just southeast of D'Hanis. Tornado on the ground. And what I'm going to do is, while we're on this mode here, I'm going to stop this, and I just want to interrogate the storm here a little bit while we're with you here live TV. I'm going to switch out of velocity data, and want to get a look here at so I can see a little bit of debris aloft just to the west side here of town. So I definitely see a little bit of debris aloft as I switch between the two radars.